organizers for 1 Million Cups Joplin. If you have not done yet, please log on to all of the social media platforms and look up 1 Million Cups Joplin. Make sure you type in Joplin. We do have our own social media channels for 1 Million Cups Joplin, and you can follow not only past presentations, but if you're not able to be here on any given Wednesday, you can watch presentations live on Facebook. We do broadcast them live on Facebook. We want to thank Aaron and Alyssa. Let's give Aaron and Alyssa a good hand. Can we do that? Every single week they're here early setting up technology and making sure that we are live on Facebook every week. I want to say thank you to them, especially this morning. But if you're not able to be here, you can join us live on Facebook every single week. Also, we want you to do us a favor. Make sure that you like and share weekly presentations. That helps out our entrepreneurs every single week, that you can share their presentation online. By the way, again, that is on Facebook and Instagram, 1 Million Cups Joplin, that you can share those presentations. We want to thank our sponsors this morning. We would not be here this morning if it were not for Toby Teeter and the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce. We're very grateful and blessed for that partnership agreement. Let's give the Chamber a good hand this morning for a way to say thank you. For those who are watching on Facebook and those of you that it is your first time, let me explain a little bit about what 1 Million Cups is. Many times we get asked the question, what is 1 Million Cups? Well, this morning, you are a part of a community of 1 million individuals having cups of coffee while we connect and we hear from our entrepreneurs. The Kaufman Foundation, which you might be familiar with the Kaufmans from the Kansas City Royals organization out of Kansas City, Missouri. It is the philanthropic give back effort, from the Kansas City Royals for communities just like Joplin, Missouri, all over the country. There are currently more than 150 chapters nationwide that are doing exactly what we're doing this morning, hearing from entrepreneurs, adding value to entrepreneurs, sharing with them, and then also creating opportunity. Many times we get asked, well, what is 1 Million Cups like? Have you ever seen the show Shark Tank? It's kind of like that, minus just offering dollars right then. You're going to get to hear not only from entrepreneurs today, but you're also going to give feedback. You're going to get to share with them some ideas that you might have. You might hear something and you may say, this might be a great question that I can ask, or you might have an idea for them. Every single week there are ideas that are given to our entrepreneurs that they can put in place and offer practical value to them, that when they walk out of this room, the idea is they can go right to work. How many think that's a pretty amazing thing, isn't it? We also want to thank some other official presenting sponsors this morning. Southwest Missouri Bank has been so grateful, so gracious to us to also help us make this happen. Also, we want to thank Gina Godley and the Joplin Public Library. Gina's been on the front grounds of 1 Million Cups from the inception. And so we are very grateful for that partnership as well. We also have a few other sponsors this morning, the Missouri Technology Corporation, and also Granny Schaefer's restaurant. If you had some coffee this morning, coffee is courtesy of Mike Wiggins and Granny Schaefer's. Make sure you go in and let them know you had a cup of coffee at 1 Million Cups and that you were thankful for their partnership with us today. Without further ado, I'm very, very excited about this next presenter, and he's probably no stranger to many of you. If you see the magazines on the seats, they are for sale today, not for take today, because they are a subscription-based publication that you can purchase through Mark Today if you choose to. But if you've been at any local coffee shop, maybe a restaurant in the area, you have seen the Joplin Toad. And I know many of you are probably like, well, the Joplin Toad, that's a weird name. What is that about? You're going to hear from Mark today about who he is, where he came from, and what this idea was all about. And so his heart and passion is Joplin. He's been a part of Joplin for many years. Some of you probably know Mark Neuenschwander from his photography studio and Third Thursdays. If you've ever went down to a Third Thursday and got to put on some really, really funny garb and taking pictures, Mark was the one taking those pictures. Please welcome the founder and president of the Joplin Toad today, Mr. Mark Neuenschwander. Mark.
Oh, I need to get my clicker. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Sweet. I haven't given a presentation in a really long time, so everybody bear with me.
Doing great.
Thanks, Mo. Okay, so I'm going to talk obviously about the Joplin Toad today. For anybody that hasn't heard of it and is really weirded out, awesome. That's that's what we start with, is weirding people out. But I'm actually gonna present this a little bit backwards of how I typically would. And I'm going to start with the what problems are you trying to solve. So I'm going to go at it from that angle first, because it'll kind of help me tell the story of how this came to be. So I'll give a little background on myself first. So my name's Mark. I have been a photographer in the area for the last decade or so. and been part of a lot of different creative pursuits. So my passion is artists. I love working with artists. I love empowering artists. I love kind of training and mentoring and creating community for artistic people. So, and one fact that I will say that led to this and has led to a lot of other things that I've been a part of is, I will not say that Joplin itself is a creative town. It is very full of creative people. And I would say almost an abnormal percentage of the population is highly creative. Artists are really good at hiding out. They're really good at keeping to themselves. Community tends to be a little bit more difficult for, you know, the introverted creatives. But I've just been friends even just with enough people to see the sheer amount of talent that's here. So for me, that's led to years and years of just kind of a weird thought, which is what can I do with all of this? How can I channel a lot of it in one direction? So that was kind of the beginnings. And then meanwhile, I've been taking photos of all kinds of things. Like JD said, I was part of Third Thursday and did something called a photo booth there where I have a different theme every month and take these really goofy pictures. And so, and I've done a lot of large scale creative collaborations and stuff over the years just for fun. So creative collaboration is not new to me. This endeavor still is. So, what button do I push to next? There we go. Okay, so what problems are we trying to solve? The first thing, I feel like this is a citywide problem, and I feel like it's something that a lot of people in the city are actually really engaging really well right now. Joplin does not have, I feel like, a clear identity. I know that, again, there's several organizations that are really working on that in ways that I've appreciated a lot. But there's just so many. There's, you know, is it the mining town? Is it the tornado town? Is it a college town? And it's not ever quite any one thing. So I feel like that's something that we've struggled with, is like, hey, who are we? I think we're a beautiful town full of beautiful people, but there's no like mascot or thing to rally around. You know, there's several smaller things. And so this is something that with the Joplin Toad, we kind of, we're realizing the power of what we're creating, because we're getting more and more people that are just rallying around, kind of like you would around like a college town does around its mascot. So like Pitt State rallies around its gorilla. You know, we have a little bit more trouble with that with Southern and some of the other things. And so and hopefully it's a giant collaboration between the lion and the toad. I don't know. So that's the first thing is we want something for Joplin to be proud of and for Joplin creatives to rally around. And the second thing would just be negative perceptions of Joplin. So I hear this way less than I used to, but something I used to hear very regularly is like, oh, I gotta get out of here, I gotta get out of this town, or Joplin sucks, or, you know, doesn't have this, or doesn't have that. And at some point I started to sense a shift in the culture from that to, no, you know what, I'm gonna stay around, I'm gonna build this, I'm gonna make this, or I'm gonna contribute in this way. And over the last 5-10 years, we're really seeing the fruits of that, you know, where we just little things like we go from one coffee shop to 4, and we have an independent theater, and we're seeing a lot more collaboration between organizations, and more building and more rebuilding of old structures, and just all kinds of amazing things are happening. So we are not by any means the only organization that is working to fight that negative perception of Joplin. We're doing it alongside a lot of other people. So I'll get back into that a little bit later, but the other thing is just, you know, there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of artists that aren't great at promoting themselves, that people don't know about, they don't realize they're there. And so we want to support those people. We want to make the public aware that they're there, and we want to give them a platform that kind of gives them a push as well. So those are kind of the, one more, oh, there's one more, yeah. So the other thing is we have several, you know, Joplin-oriented publications. We got Show Me, we got JMAG, we got some things like that. None of them are really focused on like fine arts. And so we wanted to create something that just looks really good, that is kind of the creativity above the ad space, and that really promotes the town, promotes the art, promotes even the history and humor and a lot of other kind of things. So we just saw a void there. So we felt like something was missing that again, when I, in my head, was compiling all of the people I know, and I mean, if I could channel all this in the same direction, we could come up with something amazing that's not like anything we have here. So, we're going to the top 3 questions people ask us. Maybe it's not clicking. There we go. Okay, so here's a question that everybody's probably like, why didn't you start with this? But I wanted to give a little bit of that background. So the Toad is, it is a fine arts and culture and humor, I would say platform, because our main thing right now is the magazine, but we actually existed for about 2.5 years before we ever printed one online. So we've got, we've got a social media presence, we've got a YouTube channel, we've done some podcasts and are getting ready to go back into that, do more of those. We've got some videos. So we've done a lot of different things. The culmination of it is this magazine that you guys are looking at. And I do, please feel free to grab one, flip through it, and trade them, because there's 2 different copies here. But this is kind of the culmination of everything we've been working toward. So, next question. There we go. Why did you choose a toad? So this is probably our top question, like, why a toad? Why did you call it that? Some people probably think we're a little crazy. So when I first came up with this idea, I was like, let's make something really cool. At the time it was just gonna be a website, basically an online magazine, because that's all we could do. So I had this idea, no idea what we were gonna call it, wasn't sure how we were gonna go about it, but I grabbed a couple of people I knew that I really trusted, that are good brainstormers, because that's how I approach everything. I have an idea, and I bring other people in. And we sat down together, and I had a list of probably a dozen names, ranging from, fairly serious to ridiculous. The most ridiculous name on that list was the Joplin Toad. And I asked everybody, like, what name pops out to you? Which one do you guys like? And they all were just like, the Toad. I was like, are you serious? Like, I put that one on there as a joke almost. And that was the name that popped out to them. And it got me thinking and realizing, like, it really does kind of embody the spirit of what we're trying to do, which is make something that does catch you off guard, something that is very unique, something that is quirky and establishes itself as such right from the beginning. So we want you to immediately realize, like, oh, this is really different. Next one. There we go. So people ask, why the Joplin Toad and not a frog? And that, as we thought more about it, as we kind of built the identity of the Toad, something that we talked about a lot was, hey, we're not the Joplin frog, we're not sleek, we're not shiny, we're still Joplin, and I don't mean that in a bad way, just we're a humble Midwest city, but we love Joplin, we really love Joplin. And we like to say warts and all, almost our tagline. And so we're not ashamed, of what we are, and we're not quite as pizzazzy on the surface, but we love it. So that's why a Toad. I already kind of addressed this. We're definitely more than a magazine. We've got all of these other things. And the next one. So we're a printed magazine, we're a social media presence, we're a website with regularly updated content. We do have a podcast, we do have a YouTube channel. So pretty much like if you type in @Joplin Toad anywhere, that's what we are. Sometimes the clicker works and sometimes it doesn't. There we go. So a lot of times people ask us, like, what on earth were you thinking? And this is where I'll talk about, we are the most unbusinessy business probably that'll ever be up here. And we've basically intentionally gone about everything completely backwards. And so at every step of this project, I've said, let's build this, let's just do that. We're not thinking about strategy, we weren't thinking about profit, we weren't thinking of it as business at all. It was just a creative project is how it started. Then it got to a point, we've done the website long enough, we kind of built up some readership from that, some recognition, and then it was, what if we print it? You know, is that possible? And then I hit a point where it's like, that is outside of my realm, and that's where Kayla came in. So she's our print designer and print editor, and she is the one that makes this magazine look amazing. And so at every step, our team has shifted. We've lost people and brought in people that fill different roles really well. And like I said, not been super business driven. And I'm happy with that, honestly. What we wanted to do is build this passion project and build something that looks really good and feels really good and is very true to our spirit, and then figure out later basically how to make money off of it, you know, how to sustain it long term. Because we wanted that. Because you know, when I'm at local coffee shops and that, I'll see a pile of publications there, and it's not that there's anything wrong with them, but as most publications are, they're very, it almost feels like an ad magazine with some content in it on some of them. And so I very much wanted to, you know, not do that, which is why the first issue doesn't even have ads in it. You know, it's got the logos on the back, that's it. And so we are, you know, we're moving toward other things now. So now we're to a point where things are expanding pretty quickly. They're going really well. And so we want to obviously continue increasing readership of the printed magazines. We want people to keep buying those. We want it to get to a point where it's like, okay, we've got to print more of them now because they're selling out. So, you know, there's, okay. So we're at a point now, 3 years in, where we're going, okay, we should probably figure out how to make some money. And so now we're to that point where we're figuring out, and we are making some. So we hit this last issue, we had the printing cost paid off before we printed it. Doesn't sound like much, for us that was huge though. That was a big step because that was not the case the one before. And so we're at a point now, there's so many more things that we would like to do beyond just the magazine. And to do those things, which I'll get into in a second, we do need to increase our profits. And so, you know, that's the first big goal. And I already talked about that. We are wanting to bump that up even more. It's growing really well, just organically. But obviously, you can always increase that a bit. Okay. One of the big things that we want to do is, you know, the whole thing started with supporting artists and giving artists a platform. We want to keep doing that. We want to do it in more ways beyond just a magazine. So we'd like to have, you know, we'd like to host artist workshops, you know, where we give artists more resources and things like that. And we want to continue, you know, working with even more artists and having even more online content. So expanding that platform, working one-on-one with artists in more ways. There's a lot of things that are kind of in the back of our heads that we haven't even gotten to yet and what we could do. So obviously more finances coming in frees up more time to work on some of those things. But that'll always be at the core of what we're doing, is just helping out artists. Here we go. So here's where we get into needing, you know, where we could use help. There's a number of different things that you guys can do, and I'll kind of walk through those. We do now have advertising in the issues, so, and because we're go about everything in such a weird way, right now what we're doing is if there's an ad inside the issue, which about halfway through there is an ad spread, all of the ads are vintage themed. We've done it that way on purpose, where we're like, we even want our ads to be fun. We want to make sure we can retain complete control of it so that the whole issue feels very cohesive and even the ads are entertaining. And so we'll pick a vintage kind of vibe for that issue and design all of the ads according to that. And so, yeah, ad buys are a very obvious way that businesses can support us. And right now, you know, this may change later, right now we're pretty cheap. So the logos on the back cover are $100 each, super, super simple. And it's been really cool. People have really bought in and really been supportive without us really even trying. So most of those logos on the back, like, took very little effort to ask people to do it. They're like, sure, I'd love to do that, because they kind of recognize that we're not approaching this from a profit-first perspective. We really are for the community. Quarter-page ads are like 200, half page is, I think it's 400, and then 800 for a full page. So, and like I said, we custom design those for you. You can use them for other things if you want. So that's a big one. Obviously, we can use help with. And we are getting to a point where the readership is increasing, so it's not just for us, people will see it. Obviously, people to buy a copy. I do not want anyone to feel obligated to buy a copy today. I just want you to be able to look through them. But if you do want to buy one, we can take payment almost every way you can. So we've got Cash App, we can take cash, check, PayPal, whatever. And also, if you want to buy one but not today, we do have all over the place. So they're at Bookhouse, they're at all 4 of the main coffee shops in town. They're at Chaos Brewing, they're at Just a Taste Winery in Web City. And even that's been really cool that all these places have been very willing to set these out. It's been really neat. Everybody's got creative friends. Everybody's got friends that are writers or artists, or and most of them are doing it in their closet so no one can see. And if you have a creative friend, or if you have a creative side, maybe that you do some writing or you do some illustrating or something, just kind of on the side. We want your content. We really want more people to submit. So, tell people to submit. If you have a friend that you know is really good at something, we have different themes for each issue, and we're getting a little bit more stable on what our deadlines are for everything. And so, right at this point, we're printing quarterly, and we need content for the Halloween issue, and we'll need content for the winter Christmas issue after that, and for the, so we're planning out pretty far ahead, and we really want people to send us stuff. So that's a big one. We also have something called a Ko-Fi site, which is kind of like a Patreon alternative. So it's a platform where people can subscribe. So people can pre-order the issues. We'll put up pre-orders for the next one when it's getting ready to go. Or you can, we actually have an option now where we have a couple different tiers, kind of like Patreon, where you can go on and decide which tier you want to be and subscribe to the magazine in that way. And so a couple of the tiers actually have some bonus stuff too. So you get some swag and some exclusive content, things like that. So I keep accidentally clicking the wrong side. So then again, it's at Joplin Toad on all platforms. So that's the next one is like, hey, if you see a post that you really like, if you follow us, just give it a quick share. That's always helpful to us, on Facebook especially. So we are also on Twitter. On Twitter, we only post our satire content. So we call it the dark side of the toad. And it's all the goofy stuff. So if you only want the funny stuff, because we have a lot of satire, then go to Twitter. So those are the ways that you guys can help. So I know 1 Million Cups mentioned wow statements, and so here's some wow statements for you guys. We've got over 1,200 followers on Instagram, and it's comparable on Facebook, around the same. We've gained brand recognition across Joplin, so we're getting to a point where somebody mentions the Toad. It's like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Not everybody knows what it is, but it's getting where most people have heard of it, and that's a really good thing. I mentioned the sales locations we're at, and we're regularly selling out of those. Our website's had 13,000 visitors since it started, so that's pretty cool. This is my favorite. My mailman knew who, so I was sitting on my porch with a buddy one day, and this is my we've made it moment. And he's like, man, I love the park reviews you guys are posting. I do not know my mailman. I have no idea who he is. I'd never talked to him before. I just randomly pieced it together who I was, and then we did the Toad, and so I was like, those are the weird moments where I'm like, man, that's it, we've made it. This is this is the moment. My mailman knows what this is. so that's my big wow statement for you. At this point, I'm gonna invite Kayla up too, and we're gonna tag team questions. Whenever, yeah. JD's gonna walk around with the mic, so yeah, just raise your hand and he'll pass it to you.
Good stuff, Mark. One question you didn't really answer is, who is the Toad?
That's a good one. Okay.
So, beyond you,
Okay.
Describe who is involved, how this works, and then a related question, how is this structured? Are you a for-profit entity or a non-profit entity, and why? And there's actually a blur now. There's this concept of a B. If your mission is really to empower or create a platform for artists, there's actually maybe an opportunity there to still pay yourself and others, but provide an opportunity for people who want to support the art community to donate to the entity.
That was like 7 questions, Toad. You asked everyone else's questions, didn't you? I'll jump in on some of those unless you want to. Okay. Kayla's my introverted backup, so. So I'll tackle who is the Toad first. So I am the Toad in chief. So I've been the one person that's been there since the very beginning, and then the rest of the team has kind of shifted a few times. Kayla is all things print, and a lot of other things too. So she's definitely right there with me, almost co-editor of all. And she's the one, like I said, that does. If you ever see a design and you're like, man, that looks good, that was Kayla. So the other members on our team right now, we have a variety of roles. So we've got Ashton is like our video guy, and we've got my friend Christian Schultz. He works over at Ozark. He's our poetry editor. So we have a poetry editor. We've got a video editor. We've got We've got a music editor. Yeah, Nathan Hurley's in Fox Royale, which is a local band that's really starting to take off. He basically curates music features that we pass in the magazine. So we'll regularly feature a Joplin band or recording artist, and he'll do a little write-up on them, and we'll feature their music, and he does that. We've got Matt Odie is on our team. He's done a lot of, I almost call him our satire editor. So he does a lot of the humor features, but has also done a lot of writing for us. And then we have enough members, I'm getting fuzzy.
We have a lot.
We've got several others. And who's at the different meetings and stuff shifts out, but we've got a lot of people regularly contributing in different ways, and we're getting where each person's role is getting more and more honed as time goes on. So when I started out, I was editor, and I just grabbed a bunch of people. I'm like, you're my team, and we just started making stuff, and then we've expanded that more and more as time goes on. So, what was the next question? Walk me back through.
How's it structured? Because it's kind of related. So.
Yeah. So we wrestled with that for quite a while. It was like, hey, are we gonna be a nonprofit or are we gonna be for profit? Because at heart we feel like a nonprofit, and that's kind of how we're operating. But then we looked at what you have to do to set up a nonprofit. We're like, no, we're for profit. It looks like a lot of work. So we decided it would be simpler and make more sense. Like, essentially, we are working toward a point of being a fully functioning business, so that we can keep doing the things that we want to do. And so eventually, to sustain this long term, we do need to be able to pay. Like Kayla and I, we would love to get to a point where we can pay artists at least a little bit for their submissions. We would love to have enough money coming in to host really cool events, really quirky things. So all of those things require money, So we are set up as for profit. We're set up as an LLC. So, and right now most things run through me. So, because I've got like 3 LLCs, so why not another? I liked what you said about there being like a third option between, like legally there's a business or there's not business, but like that is kind of the space we're in, I think.
Any more questions for Mark, or comments or thoughts?
Can you talk about how you're getting people to make their submissions, and then are you getting more than you need? Like, how does that process look?
That's a great question. So when it started out for the first couple of years, our submissions were me like texting friends like, hey, make me something. So people I knew could do really cool stuff. Now we're getting to a point where we're getting in quite a few submissions from people we don't know, which is wonderful. That's the point we want to get to. We do not have typically more content than we can use. We typically have just enough, and so we can always use more. Obviously, we'll get more and more to a point where we can't use everything we get. Sometimes, like, we'll have something that comes in and and we can't use it for the print issue, but we'll use it on the website, or we can't use it now, but maybe we'll use it next year, or those kind of things. So most of the best way to get content is for people to email us, and so joplintoad@gmail.com, and give us, we encourage people like, hey, give us a quick synopsis of what you're sending, and then attach, whatever it is. So there's a combination right now of random stuff being sent to us, and stuff that we are setting up or seeking out, where we might approach an artist and be like, we want to feature you, so we're gonna do this, but then at the same time somebody will send us a poem, and so, did my answer okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Other questions, thoughts? All right. We'll go here and then we'll go here.
How did you say that you submit things, such as like a poem or?
Just through the emails, typically the best way. So yeah, joplintoad@gmail.com. Except let us know who you are and attach whatever you've got. So, and I know a lot of times too, just as a quick note, like people will send us one thing, like I think this is my best thing. It's gonna send this one, but it is almost better to send us too much because then we can get. Sometimes it's like, this poem doesn't work for this issue, but this one would. So sending us several things, if you have more than one thing, is great. We definitely encourage you to do that because it's hard for us to make a full evaluation on just one
Can you
item.
say that email again?
Yeah, joplintoad@gmail.com. So, and we have something I didn't talk a ton about is the kind of features we have. I mean, we've got everything. So we've got Joplin history. We've had regular historical features now. We've got a little collaboration with Brad Belk right now, which is really neat because we forced him to. We've got a lot of satire, and so we like to make fun of lawyer billboards. If there's any lawyers in here, I'm sorry. Because, one way I think that you really truly love a place is also not being afraid to make fun of it. But we always tell people like you make fun of a younger sibling, like you still love them, and so you don't go too far. But so.
I'd like to add to that. If you have an idea and you want to run it past us, we can also help with that. Like
Yes.
Curtis Almeter, he's the photographer at Missouri Southern. He's one of the best photographers that I know.
He's so good.
But he came and he's like, I have this idea of going to a villa. It's a ghost town. How can I do that? So we help facilitate that idea, what we're looking for. And
Yeah.
that ended up being one of our most beautiful, I think,
Oh yeah.
features we've ever done.
Yeah. And he also ran another feature past us. We were like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
And then he didn't waste time on it,
If
so.
we can group you with someone too, so like say you're a photographer, but you want a written part with it, we can find someone to help you write for that, and so.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of our that's one of my favorite things to do is to pair people up. So sometimes we'll get a poem in and we'll be like, okay, you wrote this poem, now, hand it off to this person to illustrate, or, we've got this written feature, now this person go photograph for it. So it's a really cool way to foster collaboration, creative collaboration. Very good.
Okay, so do you have a way that you're tracking the people that are sharing things on all your different platforms so that you can target the new subscribers?
I'm trying to understand the question, I'm sorry.
So
Like,
if you've got, say, you've got an artist or, someone who's writing poetry and they share those things that are on all the platforms, and then someone likes it and then shares it on again, is there a way that you can track that so that you can have a target group of new subscribers that you can?
oh, I gotcha. So we have not gotten deep into the weeds on that stuff yet. That is something that we're moving toward, and probably will be doing more analytics and stuff as we go. Right now, it's just like, oh, so-and-so shared it, that's cool. So we're still kind of at that point. I'm sure we'll be honing in on that more and more as we go. But at this point, we're just so happy when somebody shares it that, joy is our analytics.
Any more questions or comments or thoughts? Doug?
Doug's got one.
So I'm curious, you're talking about things you wanted to do in the future. One of them is to host a wacky event. Can you describe what that may look like?
So we haven't gotten, my rule is typically like, if we can't do it yet, don't invest too much energy in it yet, because then our heart gets sunk into things that we don't have time for. But man, there's so much stuff I know we could do if we had the time and the resources to do it. And so like we would love to do, and some people have already started doing stuff like this. Sometimes someone else will do the idea that's been in the back of our head for 3 years, and we just, like, all right, you got that one. But we would love to do like crazy scavenger hunt kind of things. We'd love to do like pop-up art shows. And I'm sure that there's other things that we just haven't gotten to planning yet. Then again, 'cause we don't want to invest too much energy into something we're not ready for yet. But like, I just want really fun things to do for people that do tie back into the arts and the culture and are just like, oh man, nobody in town's ever done anything like that, you know. So I'm super excited for what we could do. And there's certain, then again, I know a lot of people, so there's a lot of creatives that do a lot of different things. You know, so at one point I talked about doing a downtown scavenger hunt, and I know a guy that can make giant crowd scale like video games really easily and track, you know, different things that are happening if you did something like that, you know, live. So I know a guy that can do that, and I know a guy over here that can do this, and so I love just collaboration, pulling people together and planning things like that. So, and then, like I said, we would love to have Toad art shows, things like that, where it's like people would have contributed, you know. I don't know, maybe it's just a room full of literal Toad art. That would be fun.
I have a question for you on that note, Mark. Have you ever
Yeah.
thought about having volunteers, having a volunteer base of people that are interested in these things, saying, hey, I would like to help you create events. That's my passion. I've got this idea for, can I go out and get 10 people to help me put on this event, promote it, market it, you guys design it, promote it to the Toad? Have you ever thought about a volunteer base?
Yes, primarily because we're all still volunteers right now. Our whole team, since we don't get paid, we're all volunteers. But we're getting to a point more and more where it's like, man, for instance, we enjoy being part of Empire Market. We want to be at Third Thursday. We're going to be part of Arts Fest, and we're going to go to part. It's like, hey, we don't have the manpower to run these things. We're going to need to bring in help. So we're about to that point where we're probably going to be posting like, hey, we could use some volunteers for this event, or we're looking for this. I also fully expect at this point, and I got my first hint of it the other day, that we're probably going to get people, you know, requesting internships and things like that. And we haven't gotten to a point where we find out what that would look like, but I got my first request the other day. We're like, are you guys doing that? And it's like, well, send us what you got and we'll see. So yes, and I love that idea too, because it's even more community buy-in. So I think probably the coolest thing I've heard about the Toad is somebody walked up to me and said, this feels like it's ours. And that is what we're going for. So, Joseph.
Well, one of the things that I guess, you know, you see some in bigger marketplaces like art walks and partnerships with like maybe local chambers or whatnot to do maybe an art walk maybe once a quarter or something. You guys thought about doing that with getting artists involved and community involved too, where maybe it's a $50 booth setup or something like that they can come in and share what they're doing and have some events and maybe some creative structures that invite families too to get the awareness out and stuff.
And on that note, smaller communities would feel to have that, I think. And you've got some chamber representatives here from other chambers that might be open to conversations, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, and with art walks and stuff like that, it would be, you don't want to like take over or compete with anything else that's happening already. And so that would be more us entering into, there's an existing art walk, there's the Third Thursday, and so it would be more taking part in those things. Honestly, I hadn't really thought about smaller communities around us and helping with that. That would be.
I would encourage you, Lori Layerliff from the Neuenschwander Chamber, pointing her out specifically. This would be a cool thing because they are a community that, like Joplin's, looking to grow and have more activities for families to come out and enjoy.
And we do care about the smaller communities around us. We care about Neosho, we care about Web City, we see you. and you know, we call ourselves the Joplin Toad, but we want it to be something that represents and appeals to all of the smaller communities around that, you know, come into Joplin regularly. Right, yes.
So that's kind of what I was thinking the whole time is, you know, sometimes if you step back and look at how can we just collaborate, you know, with all the different art communities like the Neosho Arts Council and the Joplin Spiva and really put together, like I could see like a whole Toad festival, you know, that would
be,
sometimes, you know, but sometimes you think, oh, that's too big for me to think about, but I think what makes a festival, you know, work is that you're partnering with your chamber and all of those different entities, and each one takes on a special part of it, like,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and so you're not doing it all, you're just kind of collaborating to do that, but to get the message out to those groups, and partnering with them for them to bring their resources, and trading that, you know, so maybe the Spiva Art Center has a nice display, they're sponsoring in that ad, and you're just collaborating to use those resources to get the word out about your individuals. So I'm very interested in, it's a very nice piece, so.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, and we love that, and we're blown away, honestly, by the support that we've gotten from local organizations. And so everybody's just been so supportive. So, you know, Spiva and Connected Culture and the Chamber and Downtown Joplin Alliance and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, like, they're all, you know, all of you guys are doing different things to really empower and do cool things in the community. And so, and you have also all been very supportive of what we're doing, you know, because there's moments when it's like, what we're doing is really weird sometimes, but it's cool the buy-in we've gotten. And with all of that, and sometimes it's random things, like, was it at the Empire Market when the high school band director said if we ever needed a high school marching band?
Yeah. I think we have the potential to like connect with so many awesome people in town.
And so then it's like, well, and someone else, you know, I've talked to the guy from the local opera group, you know, and there's a possibility of collaborating with them. I was like, and then my brain starts going like, okay, what can we do with a high school marching band and an opera? And like, you know, right, and then it's like, oh, we could do a crazy like production that's, you know, I don't know, like a pop-up production or just something insane. And yeah, and then my brain goes, you don't have time for that. So that's when I come back to, like, okay, we do need to make some money because money equals time. You know, if we make enough to support ourselves from this, then we can just do this full time. And then the idea is just go.
We got time for one more before open connections. Skyler.
You talked a little bit about being a mascot, and then also Joplin struggling to figure out exactly who they are as a community. That's been something that's been ongoing, conversation that's happening. Right now, there is the mass migration happening on a national scale. Everybody's moving out of cities, moving to more rural areas or different places. And so an example that I would give of a city that went up against a potential change of identity would be Austin, Texas. And so many people relocating to Austin to the point where they appointed Matthew McConaughey as like the brand ambassador. And he literally is putting out content like, this is how you live in Austin. This is who we are. This is how you adapt. And they're putting a real focus and emphasis on keeping Austin weird. This is who we are.
Yeah, I was going to say keep Austin weird.
And so in Joplin, I work in real estate, I do mortgage loans, and weekly we are coming up against out-of-state cash buyers and losing deals. Weekly there are dozens and dozens, so it's happening here. People are coming in droves to Joplin. So we don't have a clear identity like a city like Austin does. So is there a risk that it could change? Is there a way that the Joplin Toad could be, you know, set the precedent? This is who we are as a community, and as people come in, they can look to your magazine as a way to see, you know, I'm thinking about coming to Joplin. What is Joplin? What am I getting into? Are you that beacon of like, this is who we are as a community? People don't necessarily think of Joplin as a creatives community. I talk to lots of people relocating in, and that rarely comes up. So is there an importance to focus on that? Is there an opportunity, or is there a potential that Joplin could change as this trend continues and more people come here from out of state?
Man, that's a big question. You know, my upfront answer is I don't know. So we don't want to be presumptuous, you know, and be like, yes, city, like we are the beacon, like. But as time goes on, we're seeing a buy-in that I would say I maybe had hoped for, but didn't actually expect. So now we're to a point. It's like we're planning out a Joplin Toad mural, you know, and things like that, where it's getting more and more of a thing. And then again, that like this feels like it's ours, and people feel like they're rallying around us in full collaboration with all of the other official Joplin organizations. Maybe, you know, we'd want to do that. Then again, in a way where it doesn't feel like we're taking over anything or competing with anything or we're forcing anything. But I know that for me personally, I would love to see Joplin be known as a creative community, because again, the talent is here. It's just that the official city does not represent that. Now, I'm also even seeing a shift in that, where I feel like some of the more official organizations are pushing and recognizing that more. And so I think that that's something that could and should be built into our community more and more, is it being a very artistic community. And really, I think you do that by supporting artists. You do that by giving them platforms and giving them resources, giving them buildings and giving them, just support in whatever way you can, because they're already here. And with people coming in from out of town, there's going to be even more, and I think, personally, that's one of the things, if I were ever to move, that's the first thing I'm going to look at, is like, what, do you have murals around? Do you have good copies? Like, do you have things that do you have galleries? Do you have things that really support? Because, I feel like art is often and should be more probably the thing pushing the rest of the culture, where it's leading the culture and the culture is following. And I would love to see more of that, and that might be more me personally than the Toad, but I think we're probably all in agreement on that, So, however we can help do that, whether it's a forerunner or more a background organization just pushing stuff out, however we can best do that, we'll do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's give Mark a good hand this morning. Great presentation. I want to encourage you to stick around, but before we do have some gifts for both of you this morning. We have a 1 Million Cups tumbler mug, and I know you love coffee. So here's something great to put your coffee in while you're getting caffeinated and creating. How about that? Also, we want to thank our sponsors once again this morning, the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for helping facilitate 1 Million Cups Joplin. If you have not followed us yet on Instagram and Facebook, please do so. Also, we want to thank the rest of our sponsors this morning as well, Southwest Missouri Bank, Granny Schaefer's Restaurant, and the Missouri Technology Corporation. With that said, we're going to allow you to have some opportunity to get caffeinated and connect. Please come up and ask the Toad some questions. And you might have some thoughts. Stickers are free. They have some stickers for you. If you want to take a sticker, put it on your laptop, put it on your desk, put it on your car. They would love to contribute a sticker to you. Thank you so much for being here today. We look forward to seeing you next week.